Hello, and welcome to the official Hacks podcast from Max and Pineapple Street Studios. I'm Bobby Finger.
And I'm Lindsey Weber, and we are your hosts unpacking every episode of Hacks Season 4.
Today, we're talking about Episode 10, the season finale.
And to break it all down, we're going to be joined by the Hacks creators and showrunners themselves, Jen Statsky, Lucia Aniello, and Paul W. Downs.
Now, dear listener, you know the drill. We have major spoilers ahead for the entire season, so consider yourself warned, and we can get into it.
Okay, I got it. I'll suck Bob Lipka's dick.
What?
To get him to let go of the non-compete. I mean, my blowjob's not great, but how bad could it possibly be?
Okay, nobody wants a subpar blowjob. Also, please, I don't need any more of my clients doing stuff with him.
Now, without further ado, we are thrilled to welcome back to the podcast Hacks creators and your former podcast hosts, Paul, Lucia, and Jen. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey.
Thank you for lifting the restraining order.
All right, before we get too granular, let's do a quick recap of the Season 4 finale. It's called Heaven. It was written by Paul, Jen, and Lucia, and directed by Lucia.
This episode begins with Deborah desperate to find a workaround to the non-compete agreement she signed with the network.
I axed my attorneys. I hired and fired 6 more firms. I even tried Judge Judy, who I don't even care for.
Oh, really? I like her.
Then she realizes there's a loophole because there's always a loophole, and Deborah is very capable of finding those types of legal loopholes.
So we have to come up with material for people visiting the casino and then translate that material into Chinese, Malay, and Tamil.
Chinese, Malay, and Tamil.
Chinese, Malay, and Tamil.
So she and Ava travel not to Hawaii, as Ava thinks, but to Singapore for a new casino residency. But something's missing, something's not quite right. Deborah falls into a deep, depressive spiral. Then, when TMZ mistakenly publishes Deborah's obituary, everyone believes it. I believed it as a viewer. I was like, oh no.
Okay.
I was convinced this woman was dead, but surprise, she's not dead. She's just pissed off at TMZ for calling her retired, and she realizes that she can't let that stand. She can't let that be her legacy.
I'm no quitter. We have some rewriting to do.
And the season ends. And we're sort of like, what next? So that's where we are. The episode is called Heaven. I think we should start right there. Why did you call it Heaven?
Well,
I mean, you know, there's that moment in the beginning of the montage where Deborah says, this is heaven, that she, you know, we've always found, you know, when we first meet Deborah, she's in Vegas. She's kind of been cast out from your traditional LA, New York entertainment world. And so she creates her own version of what is, let's say, her heaven. And so in the end of the season, when this non-compete, which is a very prevalent thing in the industry, happens, you know, she kind of has to go again to the fringes to build her world. And for her, she figures out that will be Singapore. And so she manages to kind of always create the world she needs to exist around her, even when the world doesn't want to create that for her.
Yeah. We talked about this for the last episode. We were like, oh, this penultimate episode could have been the last episode. It feels like it
feels
could
like a finale,
really easily be the last episode.
Yes.
How did you choose to end the season here instead of with episode 9 when Deborah quits late night?
Yeah, you're always knowing where in the season you're headed. So very early on when we start breaking the seasons, we knew that this would be the end of this season.
Although it did get tweaked in the beginning. We knew in the beginning of writing, but
that's true. That's true.
But we also wanted to honor like the moment of post-show, what that would be like for Deborah. We wanted to see her grieve, and we wanted to see them together after the fact.
Yeah, and I also feel like because we wanted to honor the fact that this main character has been going after this goal for the entirety of the series. This has always been her white whale. And you kind of, I think, want to grieve with Deborah and sit with her and be with her and go through the process of how she handles losing this thing, even though she gave it up for a very noble reason. And so I think if you just end it at episode 9, yeah, it's a great cliffhanger of like what's going to happen. But at the same time, I think you're wanting to be with your main character and experience those feelings with her.
And also, I think if we had backed it up just a tiny bit more, now we're getting to the weeds here.
I love the weeds.
Now, if you backed up a little bit more, which is where if you had just ended it at, let's just say Deborah and Ava, are you sure? Yes, let's get out of here. All I know is that as long as we're writing together, everything will be okay. You can kind of have them walk off into the distance. But in a way that feels like it could be a series finale in a way. And we didn't want it to feel that way either. I think we kind of ended season 2 that way, you know, at the rooftop or, you know, right after the rooftop.
Right.
But in a way that you're like, oh, that feels like it could be a series finale. And we just didn't want to feel that way. And so for us to explore the grieving, as Paul and Jen just said, but then also set up a new catalyst for what gets her back up on the horse. I don't know, back up in the Bentley, and then maybe that would feel a little more propulsive, as you were saying. And I think it's more exciting for us to be like, people are like, yeah, I want to go and see her, right? Her whole, what is her legacy? And so that is why.
I want to see Deborah fight again.
Yeah,
and we wanted to give a little bit more of what I think worked so well in season 3, because you know, in season 3, episode 8, she is delivered the news, you got late night, and it could have been the end of the season. But then, oh no, there's the double turn that Deborah withdraws this job opportunity, and then Ava takes it.
Yeah, we like at the end of a season ramping up the stakes and the tension and, you know, hopefully excitement.
There's also like TV viewers now are so sophisticated and can get like we always, I think, are like trying to do the obvious sooner, you know, like you want to get to the thing and then go past it to keep giving people something fresh and interesting and juicy, versus like you could end at a certain place, but maybe that is like, they're like, yeah, that feels where it should end. That's what I would, you know.
Yeah.
We can reverse to the beginning of the episode, which takes place in the like beautifully designed lawyer's office.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But if you ever get surgery and they leave an instrument inside of you, even a sponge, you give me a call.
Isn't the lawyer's office amazing?
So
Which,
good.
by the way, that is also the conference room. And Ava's office, it was a set that our production designer, Rob Tokarz, turned over so many times and made Jen Lucart and the team that decorates the sets. It really is so good.
That was my question. So I think, we talk about, because we've talked to so many actors and we've talked to so many writers on this season, but, you know, something about a great show is that it's not just well written, it's not just well performed, it's just well realized in terms of production design and styling. And I think specifically in that scene, you had this like perfect representation of this chaos, right? Like she hasn't just reached rock bottom, she lost her show. She's talking to essentially like a strip mall lawyer who has no idea what she needs. And he's got this wonderful little Band-Aid on his face. The office looks
Day
disgusting.
of choice.
Really? But like it made me think of one of my favorite production design details of this season, how disgusting Ava's car is. You know, like the fact that Ava's trunk is nasty is so authentic and good. Like,
a lot about that trunk.
We're laughing hard.
We're laughing hard because
it's just so well observed.
one of us maybe has a car that looks like they live out of it, and we won't say who.
We would never reveal her. We never reveal her.
Yeah, it's me. It's me. Lucia got in my car the other day. There was like a flat iron in the front seat and like 42 water bottles
And a
jar of honey.
A couple jars of wine, I think, actually. It's a chaotic, beautiful mess, but it's ripped from the headlines.
Yes, and that lawyers Rob Tokarz and Jen Lucart did an amazing job in their production team with that attorney's office. Those are some of our favorite. We love like low rent, like season 2, the psychic's office was also like that. Those are really fun to design and add details to.
And sometimes, you know, we have thoughts on it. Like the psychic's office, definitely we wrote in that there were extension cords all over the place because there's dialogue. Watch the cords. But there are so many details that they find and bring in that are so good. I mean, I think in the lawyer's office this season, I think we knew there was going to be a cat scratch pad.
Well, there was also so we wanted a real cat.
Yeah, we did want a real cat, but it was costly, honestly, to get an animal trainer and a cat.
You lost your whole budget on the coyotes, you know?
Literally.
The animal budget.
Oh, and Lassie, don't forget.
Yeah,
Lassie.
A lot of animals.
Well, actually, do you know that there was... We had to like move the Lassie day up very quickly, and then the dog wasn't available or something. So we actually had to go back and shoot the dog
separately.
Yeah, we had to
separately
do a
on another-
pickup for the dog. Yeah, additional.
It's just crazy. Like your show echoes your show. Like that is something that would
Yes.
happen on
Oh,
Hacks.
Lassie's
Like,
not
that's-
available. It's like, can we get another
No.
dog? It's like, not really.
Yes.
Not a
Yeah.
star like that bitch.
Not a collie.
No. While we're talking about like sets and design production, because we haven't spoken to you all season, something that we were kind of gagged to see that how much the Americana comes back. It's like that is not a 1-day shoot. That's like you guys keep going back there to the point where there's now multiple angles. There's a moment where somebody is yelling up to somebody else. There's like a drop off moment where there's a car in the
when
Americana.
she says,
like
just drop me off at the Aritzia, I think I lost
Yeah.
my mind.
there's just so much Americana in this
Oh, yeah.
season.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear more about kind of like, because we didn't know when we first spoke to you kind of how specific that was.
If we
gonna
could
be
make
for
the
show.
Americana Hour lot, we would do it. We would be there. If we could build a stage, you know, in the gap.
It
That should
feels
be
like
the
a-
next show. It should be a
Set-
show at the Americana.
Yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
think, yeah, it should.
Yeah.
Oh God, we have to go. We have to go. We have to do something.
It's also like thematically very cool, I think, because we're really tackling the idea of like, what does it mean, this intersection of art and commerce? Ava to be a writer and artist surrounded by commerce in your living situation. You know, she literally, like you said, lives at the Aritzia.
Or in the Cheesecake Factory.
In the Cheesecake
to call back to
Factory.
season 1.
Yeah. So it's cool because it does both things. It's both thematically very interesting and also just a very fun location to get to shoot at.
And just to say it, I did live in a mall, above a mall in Vancouver when I was doing
Yeah.
Babysitters Club in Vancouver.
The dream. The dream.
It wasn't like the same kind of a mall, but it was like literally just like across the street from the mall, but that's the only thing that was open. So it pretty much was like I looked downstairs and that was a Sephora, but you know, it really didn't do it for me. I have to be honest.
Well, you're not a mall girl.
I'm not a mall
You're
girl.
very European in that way. You're very.
Good
I mean,
old
this
Lucia was
Grazie.
born in Italy, dear listener, in case Barbara doesn't
yeah,
know.
Barbara. Don't
Um,
forget.
She knows.
I don't. I hope
Does
you've
she
been
not?
paying
Does she
respect.
not know?
She might. But
No, she
Lucia
knows.
came.
She's been here the whole time.
Lucia came to the U.S. without a dollar to her name or a word of English, and so a mall to her is not like the thing.
I was
you know?
3 months old.
Okay, there's a scene, I'm going to jump a sec, where
Yes.
Jimmy is like talking about open writing assignments that's so like insidery. And he says like a take versus a twist.
Have you thought of a take for Greta Gerwig's Catcher in the Rye because she's taking meetings?
I thought Holden Caulfield being a girl was the take.
No, the gender flip is the twist. But what's the take?
Can you explain
The
the
difference,
difference?
please.
Thank you.
Huh, yeah,
What that is.
sure. A take is sort of your way in, and a take is sort of like the point of view. One might argue that Holden Caulfield being a girl could be a take, but that is a twist. I guess in this world, you find out that Holden's a girl because a twist has to be
Oh,
revealed.
interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Do you think a
I took it-
twist is like
Or a twist. It's a twist.
it's a twist on the idea?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
a twist is like a new version of the idea, and a take is the
lens with which it's explored throughout the product.
yes.
Mhm.
I call it a product.
Yeah, through the
'Cause
product.
I am a capitalist pig.
Thank you. Thank you for
But that's an excellent question.
Did you guys have any takes on that or pitches? Because Greta, I
It's
don't know.
open. It's
I-
still
I
open.
actually think she might watch your show. So if you've got
I
something,
mean, Greta's Catcher in the Rye, like that
I'm
breaks
sold.
itself.
That's good.
I'm sold.
You might have stolen it.
She just
Well,
writes it.
although
Yeah.
in our writer's truth, Tony Kushner was
right.
up for it, but no cigar. He
Oh.
wanted Holden to smoke a cigar, but Greta is very anti big tobacco,
That's true. That was actually a line that was in that we cut.
and that's a pretty good line.
So while Deborah is in Vegas and sort of beginning her spiral, how do you imagine? Because again, this episode is really tight. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and then before you know it, Ava shows up in her like perfectly styled, hideous travel outfit that I love so much.
Oh, I loved her
But-
Hawaiian look. That
I
was
love
so
it.
chic.
How do you like in terms of the stuff that couldn't make it to the screen? Like, how are you imagining Ava was reacting to that huge incident from episode 9?
Mostly looking at her phone to see if Deborah texted her back.
Yeah.
yeah.
And, you know, this was an instance where a lot of times when Jen and I come in for a producer's cut of a director's cut, we know pretty much what it is. But in this instance, Lucia made a tweak in that what was going to play over Deborah's montage of time spent watching TV and eating cookies in her bed it was like a jump cut montage of her just in bed where you heard messages that were left for her. So you were hearing Ava call repeatedly and pitch ideas and say, why don't we go do this thing? Or Jimmy calling and checking in. Or we even had Robbie Hoffman as Randy call and Kayla call. Like, we had all these voicemails of people concerned and checking in. But the song was so powerful, and it was so powerful just to be alone with, because Gene gives you so much, even without dialogue, that it was just so moving and so powerful to just be with her and to sit with her and not have what was not only dialogue, but also jokes. You know, there was a lot of comedy in that. And so seeing it without those, you know, phone calls throughout, I loved it. I was like, it's one of my favorite sequences we've ever done.
Yeah.
Especially when she gets to that Bonanza gift shop, you know, in the middle of the night, where she's like,
she's wearing the hat. What does it
girl.
say? Girl.
Girl.
Of course.
Now,
It says
just
girl.
says girl. Now, here's a couple fun facts about that. One, when we were on a location scout, we drove by Bonanza, and we've always been like, oh my God, we have to shoot there. And we were like, oh my God, we have to shoot there.
But we were there at the very beginning of this season.
Yes.
And we were not there to shoot episode 10. We were there to shoot episode 3.
But we squeezed it in. We squeezed it in because we were like,
but
we got to do it because we can't come back to Vegas.
But Jean didn't know yet what was going to happen. She hadn't read those scripts in the end. So Jean's performance in that Bonanza gift shop, she actually has no idea what has transpired when she's acting in that scene.
She's just sad.
She knows she gets a mini bottle of booze and pours it in a Coke. So she's like, I get it.
She knew that
I
she
know
was
what we're doing.
feeling low, but she actually did not have the context of what had happened when she acted in that scene. What do you think of that?
I would say maybe maybe she assumed something happens with the show. She just didn't know the exact
but
way.
It was all
which...
assumption.
Yes, of course.
That's why she has like 7,000 Emmys, I guess.
Yeah, truly.
Do you want to talk about this also, the song in the Bonanza montage?
Emma Louise
I think.
sings this song that is playing over the bedroom montage into the Bonanza scene. So that's actually a woman who's pitched her voice down, and so it sounds like a man's voice. And she recorded a whole album like that. And so we thought that was we loved the song, and it was just so haunting and beautiful. But we also felt like there was a metaphor there, and the idea that Deborah has kind of like had to change her natural. She's kind of had to mold her voice or her personality into being more like a man's as she goes through the world more like a man in a way to be successful. And so we felt that that was an apt metaphor, and that song had just extra layer to it that we felt was really nice.
I mean, that song is so beautiful. And like Paul was saying, like the choice Lucia made to not have the voice, like it's so moving. That sequence wasn't ever as moving to me as we wrote it and conceived it. And then that song would put over it is just, and Jean's performance and Lucia's direct, it's just so beautiful. That, like Paul said, I remember watching the producer's cut being like, this is one of my favorite things we've ever done.
And it's also shot differently in that in the sequence in Bonanza, we do in-camera zooms. So we don't usually have those lenses. We usually use prime lenses that don't change their
perspective
size. But we did on that one to have more of a voyeuristic POV. We're like far away, like moving in on watching her, so he feels even that much more detached. And in that way, it kind of places Deborah as one of the many people in the store, and like she's just a regular person in Vegas now. All of the artifice has come off, the wig has come off, as it were.
Literally,
and she has to just slip on that little hat that says "girl," because in the end of the day, that's what she is she's a girl.
Yeah, you see her touch the diva hat and think about it, and then
she
not
puts
diva
it
anymore.
Yeah.
No,
she's I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl in the
and
world.
That's all that I'll ever be.
There's this whole sequence in the center of this episode where, I mean, I think maybe it's just because of Las Vegas and I love Ocean's 11 because I have a soul. And there's this sense of like getting the gang back together. She goes and visits Marcus. We see Marcus's mom. We see like, the whole crew is getting back together. And I especially love that scene of seeing what Marcus is up to. And he has this job that, he's doing well, but like, you can't shake the fact that like, this isn't the right place for Marcus, right? Like you want all of these people to be together in the end. Am I wrong for thinking that? Am I wrong for wanting that?
You're not at all.
You're not wrong at all.
Your feelings are your feelings.
Are we going to give it to you? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the end of an era. I know, it's so sad. It's like Vegas used to be so gritty and fun, and now every hotel is owned by some mega conglomerate.
Corporate greed.
Mom, you crossed a picket line to take a yoga class.
Baby, I told you it was non-refundable.
That's hard.
And like Wilson said, Vegas has changed. I mean, there's no more boutique hotels. There's chains everywhere. It just feels sterile. You know what I'm saying?
It's such a beautiful sequence when they're all watching the destruction. It's such a, to me, an emblematic part of the Las Vegas life, where part of living there is watching the destruction of something and then the rebirth of something new. Can you talk about shooting that? Was it just luck that happened to happen? I'm sure they weren't there when they did it, but how did you make that whole sequence come to pass?
Well, it was luck insofar as there was a scheduled demolition because we liked that metaphor for things, especially things from the past going away. And also it weirdly dovetailed into our story about corporate greed, you know, that Deborah deals with in terms of what she's experiencing in the television industry. But they had scheduled that demolition, and so we did shoot it. And you're right, we did shoot our actors separately from that. So they weren't actually there, but we did shoot the actual demolition. So that is our cameras and our footage of the demolition, which is very
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah. And then we recreated the other side
Here in
Los
LA.
Angeles, where they were watching.
And it's a credit to our producers and production team because often, you know, we get this idea and we're like, oh, they're watching the Tropicana be demolished because we read that that's happening and it fits so perfectly into what we're planning. And then we text our producer, hey, can we send a camera crew to Vegas in a week to shoot the Tropicana demolition?
Can you imagine being our producer and getting a text from us at 10:30 at night? Can you imagine the horror?
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
Three of you on the text with the producer just being like,
we need to capture
firing
this
off
building
whatever.
falling down.
That's why you need 3 showrunners because they block one number, but then you can text them the
someone else can be
other.
like, how about Singapore?
Yeah.
What happened in Hawaii?
Oh, we went. You missed it. We stopped to refuel. I wanted to tell you, but you were out cold for 18 hours. I don't think that was a Xanax. I think you took a horse trank.
Why are we in Singapore?
I'll show you.
Can you talk about the inspiration to that? Like, is this something you had to, did you speak to a lawyer to like figure out if there's precedent for this? Like, how did you sort of come up with this loophole in the writing process?
We can't legally say.
No, we called our
Oh, you
lawyer.
can't
We
legally
did
say.
call
No,
our
we
lawyer.
did.
called
We
our
did. We
lawyer.
did.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah. We did ask about this.
Yeah, and they were like, that totally happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that
Cool.
could work.
Wow.
And we did feel like it was like, it's initially not her thought to like, well, I'll go across the planet to do
Right.
it. You know what I mean? Initially she's like, how can I do it in Vegas? How can I, you know, how can I get around this in my backyard? But it's only when she's really pushed to the brink and only when she's looking, I think, at the in-flight map and thinking about all the time she won't be working is she like, Also, there is a little tiny Easter egg when Marcus says, once we figured out, because most of the business is overseas, a good translator, it kind of clicked, and now it's pretty much does it the job itself. So
There's also an Easter egg with the focus group where they say one of her demographics are college educated
That was
Singaporeans.
right.
That's
She remembered that. She wrote it down, if you recall.
She goes,
She wrote it
She
down.
wrote it down.
She's like, you know,
Wow.
you never know when I might need this.
It was there all along.
Can you talk about shooting in Singapore? How long was that shoot? And what was it like being so
we were
far
there
away?
for a
This-
while. I mean, we didn't shoot for a while,
shot
but
for 5-ish days.
yeah, but I think we went for at least 10, right?
10,
Wow.
I believe.
Which seems like a while to me.
a lot of the locations that had been chosen, but we still had to tech scout. And also, though, what was crazy is that we were there. We already had, jet lag. It's like a, 16, 18-hour flight, something like that.
17 and a half, yeah.
And then on top of that, so many of the locations weren't available to us except for midnight to like 6 a.m. Singapore time or 8 a.m. or noon. Oftentimes we were doing midnight to
Oftentimes
noon.
it was like, it was like a 1 a.m. call.
Yeah.
So you would set your alarm for midnight and be like, what time do I go to bed?
So you try to go to sleep at like 4 or 5 p.m., but you also were
Yeah.
jet lagged, but it didn't line up. It was like a really crazy
It was crazy.
body clock time.
Yeah.
Luckily, Jean can sleep anywhere at any time. Like, she's
Yeah.
just a great
It's
napper.
amazing.
She can be
Yeah.
out in her, when between scenes, but not for the rest of us.
It does feel fever
That's a
dreamish.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fever dream.
And I gotta say, I loved it.
I did
loved
too.
Singapore.
I enjoyed just the traveling, and I had actually been to Singapore before, not to brag, but it's so different than when I was there that it was still like very cool.
And I had never been to Asia.
Yeah.
I'd never been to Asia. I'd never done a flight that long. I'm a terrible flyer. So I was really scared.
Ugh,
And
poor Jen.
insult to fucking injury, we weren't on the same flight as her.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
that was. Listeners will really sympathize with me.
Yeah, 'cause
for
she
that.
for-
I didn't get to fly with my friend.
Did you purposefully separate the showrunners in case?
Can you
We
imagine?
joked about that. We were like, "Is this to maintain the show
Just in
there's-"
case.
No, I don't know what it was, but so Paul and Lucia were together, and then Morgan and I worked together many years. He produced Parks and Rec and Good Place, came on to Hacks. Love him. But it is a unique thing to travel a 17-and-a-half-hour journey with someone that you only know in a work context. Morgan and I I felt like we were on our honeymoon. There's nothing happened. It wasn't romantic.
Did you guys take showers next to each other?
Well, this is the thing. In the gorgeous layover we had in Hong Kong, in the Hong Kong airport, there's like, you go into the lounge and there's showers where you can shower and whatever. So there's they're behind doors, but we were wheeling our little suitcases and I'm like, bye Morgan, gonna shower, and go in. And then we come out all fresh. We have our little meal. It was so much. I mean, I feel bad for him because I'm like, what the heck was I talking about?
It's funny they only Singaporean, I've never been there and I don't know a ton about it, honestly, but what I do know about Singapore is I know about that airport, that beautiful.
Oh, isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
It's insane. So I immediately knew that. And I feel like that is kind of a landmark at this point. A lot of people immediately were like, that's not Hawaii. That's Singapore.
I'm glad you knew that because I actually, again, having been there, it wasn't built when I was there. So I didn't know it existed. I'm glad that glad that people know
I'd
of
never
it. That's
seen
good.
it. Yeah.
But I think you know
that they do.
You have to know that. I mean, for the most part, that's not Hawaii, right? Also, you're like, that's, I never heard about that.
Yeah.
Because that's Ava's point of view. She's like, is this new?
Right. Totally. I mean, the problem is it is tropical. So that's the only misdirect there is that,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, Maui has a crazy airport or whatever,
Yeah.
True.
You talked a little bit about Jean Smart and her being in Singapore and how well she does sleeping in other places. But I wanted to talk about the actor who plays the translator for Deborah. Was that a local performer or was that someone you cast in the United States?
She was a
They were
local.
so good.
Yes.
So
she was
good.
great. She was local Singaporean actress. She was great. She, she worked, even though, she's native, she also worked with a translator to make sure that they, the way that the jokes were interpreted were accurate. The way that, a comedian, in theory, I think this performer is also somewhat of a comedian.
Yeah.
And so the way that they would do kind of a setup of punchline.
You can't really just put it through Google Translate. You can't just translate it.
Yeah.
She's committed to the accuracy of that.
Yeah.
And
But that's why it's so
great.
satisfying to see it progress.
The
where
delayed-
it's
the
at first
delayed
no
applause.
one is laughing and then they're kind of laughing and then they are she actually does crack it a little bit where they are writing jokes that even though they're performed, you wait 10 minutes for it to be said again in a different language and people are still thinking they're so funny. I'm kind of like, okay, so there is kind of there's a success metric here.
That's why it keeps getting extended as it works.
It's working.
Right.
And it was totally
That's
worth
true.
kicking that old guy out of his residency.
He's so done.
So-
He's going to Vegas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great music in this episode. I mean, I was really moved by the cover of the Cranberries song. I was like, that's such a
Good.
cool moment. It sounds beautiful. It's like a perfect kind of when you're in another country moment where you're like, I know this, but I don't know this isn't the words or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You feel kind of lost in that.
And I love when a music choice is so good, but it seems very rare for a movie or a TV show to let a song, to quote the Cranberries again, linger as long as this does. I think we hear most of the song, if not all of it, in this episode.
I think so.
And it's a really
it's
kind of
long.
it's an effective little moment. It's really emotional to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, and there's something about the way that it ends with her on the rooftop that feels like it's exhausted by the end.
Yeah, and at one point they're singing it too.
Yes.
They're engaging with it. It's real from their lives.
It's a song that you make the choice to use, and it, like Lucia is saying, it starts out more upbeat and you're like, yeah, they're in Singapore, they're having fun. And then by the end, it works to be kind of sad and tragic. It's hard to find a piece of music that can carry that through and do both things emotionally and take the viewer on that journey with them.
And you're in Ava's perspective.
Yeah.
At first Ava's like, yeah. And then at the end, she's like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool that Jean Smart, Deborah has, she is kind of at her lowest in this episode. But at the same time, there's that shot of her just really freely dancing alone on this boat. Yes, it's kind of bleak because she's drinking a lot, but we've never really seen Deborah like this before,
Right. Yeah, I think it's so interesting. And I love that shot where she's on the rooftop, on top of the world.
Yeah.
And yet you can see in Ava's watching of that it's definitely rock bottom for her. Because even though she is having fun and she's partying and drinking and getting to perform, she's not doing anything new. She's clearly in denial. She's clearly tricking herself and I think comforting herself because she's gone through something really difficult. So it is an interesting dynamic. It is conflicting.
And I feel like you've given up.
Given up? Given up? I took a late night show to #1. And, regardless of your judgment of my material, I perform every night. What do you do while you're here? Except follow me around with your empty little notebook and your big shorts. If you just want to happy, why don't you just leave? Why are you still here?
You brought me here. And honestly, I didn't want to leave you alone.
I didn't ask you to stay.
That final boat conversation, we were rewriting up until the night before we shot it in Singapore, which is
not something we normally do.
It's not something we normally do, but it was a case where, in a good way, we all checked in with each other and were like, this doesn't feel exactly right. This doesn't feel exactly like propulsive enough or like interesting enough or like, and so the things that Deborah and Ava say to each other on that, while the general vibe of the scene and what happens was always going to be that, we went like deeper and kept going and trying to make it just more interesting and way juicier and something for the actors to dig into when they're acting it.
But I also understand Deborah's point of view, which is like, I've worked really, really hard. And yeah, I did that and I made my choice and that's fine. But now I'm just drinking and hanging out and like, how dare you judge me? Like, I understand that part of it too. Like, I really, this is so our mantra. So sorry if you've heard it, but we really try to create situations where nobody's completely right, nobody's completely wrong. So when you're on that boat, we see where they're both coming from. But on the other hand, there's just like a natural want to watch Deborah swim upstream. Mm-hmm. She's really good at it and she loves it. She loves the scratching and the clawing, as it were. And so I think,
depending on your perspective, you might be like, Ava's kind of like buzzing, like harshing her
right,
boat.
right.
Like, leave her alone. Like, can't she go on vacation? Like, sorry you ended up here. I guess that wasn't your fault, kind of. But you are maybe kind of projecting your own stagnant on this woman.
And yet, to what Lucia is saying, like, even though Deborah receives it as judgment in that moment, what it really also is Ava just knowing her so well and knowing that Deborah Vance, without a fight and without swimming upstream and a boat, like a dog without a bone, she is just not herself. And that, for someone else, dancing on that rooftop and drinking and playing with a beach ball in the pool with your new friends is maybe a great way to live out that few years or whatever, but that's just not who Deborah is, and Ava knows her better than anybody. So that is what she is saying to her on that boat.
But Deborah doesn't really want to hear it, so what does she do? She lashes out.
At the end of this episode, Ava wakes up to a barrage of phone calls and texts that are informing her that Deborah has been pronounced dead by TMZ.
Legendary comedian Deborah Vance, known for her sardonic wit, is dead at 72. Vance's last few years have been marked by extremes, the high of becoming the first female late-night host and the low of abruptly quitting the show on air, which led to the demise of the entire franchise. They're saying I killed late night. This is the lead to my fucking obituary? Cunts! Oh my God. They used the R word. What? Retired.
Oh.
You talk about the concept of that scene and how long that's sort of been in the hopper, the idea for this part of the
series.
Fake
kill Deborah.
Yeah, this wasn't actually kind of in the way this has happened a few times over the course of the show. This was actually an idea that we've had since season 1.
Oh, wow.
We've always been very struck by the story of how the Nobel Peace Prize came to be created. Alfred Nobel invented dynamite. That was his invention. And there was a obituary of him that was accidentally published. And when it was published, it called him the Merchant of Death and talked about how his invention had been used to kill so many people. And it caused in him a reckoning. And he realized, like, oh my God, this is what my life legacy will have been, that I created this thing that took so many lives and created so much pain in the world. And that caused him to change course and establish the Nobel Peace Prize, and that basically, and created that to honor art and everything that the Nobel Peace Prize is that we, hope to win for this episode. And so we'd always talked about that's such an interesting thing for a celebrity, for a famous person to deal with, because this does happen, as we all know. With the internet, especially now, so many times someone's death can be falsely reported. And so we were like, it would always be really fascinating if Deborah's obituary was falsely leaked, because it's such a dramatic thing, especially for the people in her lives. Like you see Ava and Jimmy, the way they're reacting, but also for Deborah herself to have a chance to see what people would say about you when they think you're gone, and then have a moment to go, is that what I want my legacy to be? So
it's a gift.
It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a horrible thing to happen, and it's so shocking and scary, as is depicted in the episode. But it's also a gift, because it does make you go, okay, I'm not dead. I'm still here. Is this what I want my legacy to be? And so that is what we wanted to explore with her, and that is what happens at the end of the episode, as you see. And it sets Deborah up to rewrite that legacy, because that is not how she wants to be remembered.
Love it.
Thank you so much, Paul, Jen, and Lucia, for joining us. This was wonderful. And thank you for such a great season of television. We cannot wait for more.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thanks for being such great hosts.
Yes.
And for letting us
Thanks
come
for
on.
giving us the chance. It was so fun.
Thanks for joining the Hacks family. Your family.
Your family now.
Bye.
Ciao for
guys.
now.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.
And that's it. This has been the official Hacks podcast. I'm Bobby Finger.
And I'm Lindsey Weber.
This podcast is a production of Max and Odyssey's Pineapple Street Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis, Barry Finkel, and Jayanne Barry.
Our producers are Melissa Akiko Slaughter and Ben Goldberg. Our associate producer is Natalie Peart. Darby Maloney is our editor.
This episode was mixed by Hannes Brown. Pineapple's head of sound engineering is Raj Makija. And Pineapple's senior audio engineers are Marina Pais and Pedro Elvira. This episode was engineered by Javier Cruces.
Special thanks to Kenya Reyes, Allison Cohen-Sorokoch, Aaron Kelly, and Becky Rowe. Production music is courtesy of Max. You can watch new and old episodes of Hacks on Max.
Big special thanks to Paul, Jen, and Lucia for joining us today on the show and for letting us fill in for them this season.
Thanks for listening. When you found out it was us and not them, thanks for sticking around. We had so much fun this season. It has been an honor to be your host this season.
Do I look like a fun and flirty vacation girl?
You look like Ace Ventura, pet detective.
Both are sexually viable. Let's rock!